December 9th meeting of the Franklin Historic Zoning Commission. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Our first thing on the agenda here is to approve our minutes from last meeting. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the November 11th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Move for approval.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Michael and Bob. Any discussion, comments on these? Okay, hearing none, let's vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes for November 11th, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, the ayes have it unanimously. I will get these back to staff. Staff announcements, please.
Yes, we have two. We have a regularly scheduled DRC meeting next Monday, the 16th at 4 o'clock, and it will be the final meeting of the year. And the deadline to submit for the January Historic Zoning Commission meeting is on Friday, December 27th for the January 13th meeting.
Okay. And is that different because of the holiday?
Mm-hmm.
That,
It is.
that submission? Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure everybody knew that that was the case. Okay. Thank you. At this time, it's citizen comment period. This is open for citizens to be heard on any issue or concern. If you'd like to speak on a specific agenda item that's on the agenda, please wait until that citizen comment period for that item. For all other citizen comments, you may be heard now. Okay, seeing none. I want to remind everyone that if you want to speak on an item later, please fill out a speaker card. They're right behind the column there. Make sure staff gets it. They'll get it to me. And at that time, you'll come up, state your name and address, and try to limit your comments to 2 minutes. Right. Item number 2. Moving on here to our first project, consideration of window alterations at 347 Main Street. And Elizabeth has our staff report, please.
Thank you. The 347 Main Street is a commercial building located on the southeastern corner of Main Street and 4th Avenue. This storefront is a part of the Moore Block, a 2-story commercial building built circa 1890. The windows on the side of the building fronting 4th Avenue South on the first floor are single light windows with a transom above the window. The proposal includes replacing the glass pane with an in-kind clear tempered pane, and additionally on the middle window located on the first floor of this facade, it is proposed to repair and replace the deteriorated bottom rail with an in-kind materials and profile. As proposed, the proposal to replace the glass pane and repair the window aligns with recommendations of the guidelines and preserves the original window. Staff recommends approval of the window alterations to repair the windows with conditions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. If the applicant wants to come forward. Miss Craig.
Yes.
If you'll state your name and address for us, please, and then anything you want to add, feel free.
Okay. Dawn Craig, and Finley's is my business at 347 Main Street in Franklin. I don't really have anything to add. We would just like to repair it.
Okay. Thank you. Any citizens who wish to comment at this time? Okay. Hearing none, I would look to the commission to make a motion to get us started.
Motion to approve with conditions?
Okay.
I'll
Thank
second.
you. Thank you. Lisa and Brian. Any discussion?
Just sorry it happened.
Yeah, it's interesting pictures because you see the broken glass next to the cup next to the window. So, any other discussion? All right. So we have a motion on the floor to approve with staff conditions. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item number 3, consideration of alterations door replacement at 1368 Eastern Flank Circle. And Elizabeth has a staff presentation for us again.
Thank you. So 1368 Eastern Flank Circle is a non-historic building located on the site of the locally designated landmark site of Carton and the Eastern Flank Battlefield Park. This building previously served as a clubhouse when the battlefield was a golf course. The event facility is residential in form. During the transition to New City Hall, the facility will be utilized for commission meetings as well as additional meeting spaces for city staff and the public. The proposal includes the replacement of 3 doors on the building, one on the front, side, and rear of the building. The proposed doors are intended to ensure ADA compliance and provide added security to the building. As noted, the current doors are not compliant with current codes and do not meet the required safety standards. Additionally, employee access card readers will be added to the 3 entrances. The guidelines recommend the following for non-historic building entrances: to design doors and doorways to be compatible with the historic district. So we'll move on to the first proposed door on the front. The existing front entrance features a double door with side lights and a transom. The proposed replacement door will be a double door with side lights. The proposed door will not utilize a transom window and will instead utilize a taller door to fill in the opening. The proposed front full light double doors and side lights are appropriate and are secondary in detailing to the nearby historic Carton. And we'll move on to the rear door. The existing rear doors are not original to the building and were installed circa 2012. The existing design features a 15 light double door, and the proposed replacement door are full light metal double doors. The doors will not utilize the mutton pattern and will have a built-in blind. The applicant has expressed that the new push bars are needed for operation. Blinds or curtains would interfere with the operability of the push bar on the interior. And the blinds are needed as the sun interferes with events and presentations in the main meeting space. The proposed replacement doors are appropriate for the rear of the building. The removal of the mutton pattern is appropriate as no other door or window on the building utilizes a grid mutton pattern. And the utilization of a built-in blind is not a common feature. However, the overall door is compatible with the historic district. On the side, the existing side entrance is a 6-panel door, and the proposed replacement door will maintain the 6-panel door design with a metal door. The proposed replacement door is appropriate. And since this is a city project, staff does not make a recommendation, but there are some potential conditions should the Historic Zoning Commission approve this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. The applicant, Mr. Walker, if you want to add any comments.
Good afternoon. My name's Kevin Lindsay. I'm the Superintendent of Facilities and Maintenance, and I have Trevor French here, which is over my Maintenance and Facilities divisions. We're here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any citizens who wish to comment on the application? Okay, seeing none, let's go to the commission for a motion.
Move for approval with staff conditions.
Okay, Michael,
Second.
Holly, thank you so much. Is there any discussion? None? I had a little bit of concern about the blinds inside the glass.
Yeah.
But I think considering that the context is just fields around this and it's I guess the term's non-contributing structure to the historic district. It's a contemporary building. I think I'm okay with it because I can imagine utility-wise with push bars and being able to control some glare, it probably makes sense for this particular location. But
Is that just on the door in the room that opens into the room?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not the front door.
Not the front door.
Gotcha.
yeah. Any other thoughts? Let's vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no? The ayes have it. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Easy
Appreciate your
breezy.
time. Hope y'all have a Merry Christmas.
You too.
Merry
Appreciate it.
Christmas.
All right, moving right along here to item number 4, consideration of site alterations, walkway, patio, driveway, and parking pads at 328 Franklin Road. And Elizabeth gets to give us the lowdown again.
Thank you. So 328 Franklin Road is located in the Franklin Road Historic District. This principal building is a circa 1951 ranch-style home located along the scenic corridor and gateway to the downtown area. The proposal previously received feedback at the November 2024 Design Review Committee meeting, and a series of site alterations are proposed: the installation of a sandstone walkway, installation of a sandstone terrace, installation of 2 parking pads, and replacement of the concrete driveway. The proposed location and configuration of the walkway is appropriate and relates to the pattern of walkways in the historic district. The utilization of sandstone as a walkway material is not common in the district. We'll go on to the terrace. A sandstone terrace is proposed to be installed in the front yard in front of the breezeway. The guidelines recommend the following: to avoid the use of large pavers or boulders, asphalt, or any other impervious surface where they were not located historically. For residential buildings, provide a landscaped front yard and minimized paved or hardscape areas, and do not fully remove or replace traditional lawn areas with hardscape. Site and setting alterations should be considered as appropriate when they are undertaken in locations that are not visible from public view and do not remove historic features and do not detract or overwhelm from the context of the historic district. The proposed location of the terrace is not a traditional location for this feature in the Franklin Road Historic District. Supporting materials have not been provided to support the placement of this terrace in the front yard with historic documentation, and the utilization of sandstone as a terrace material is not common in the district. The proposed terrace does not align with the guidelines. For the parking pad, the proposed locations of the parking pads are appropriate and align with the guidelines at the rear of the building. The proposed materials are also appropriate and seen throughout the district. And for the driveway, the proposed material of the driveway is appropriate and aligns with the guidelines. So staff recommends denial of the sandstone terrace based on the following guidelines: to avoid the use of large pavers, boulders, asphalt, or other impervious surface where they were not located historically. For residential buildings, providing a landscaped front yard and minimized paved or hardscape areas. And for site and setting alterations to be considered as appropriate when they are undertaken in locations that are not visible from public view. And staff recommends approval of the walkway, parking pads, and driveway with conditions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The applicant will join us. State your name and address for us again, please. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ernie Reynolds of Holly Consults here in Franklin, representing owner Leanne James.
Anything you'd like to add to the staff presentation?
Yes, we would appreciate a reconsideration the use of sandstone, as it's intentional there to bring out the limestone, which is on the bib of the existing building. Sandstone makes for a better, safer pathway than does limestone, so that's our choice, and we feel like its blue-gray complexion is going to work very well in the area. As for the terrace, it serves a breezeway, which otherwise doesn't have any sort of connector path for a pedestrian to access the breezeway or to leave the breezeway, for that matter. So we're asking for a 200 square foot terrace, which would be on grade, not conspicuous from the road, or barely conspicuous, I should say. And for that terrace to be something, again, that would serve those who are entering the building or exiting it. And the owner has expressed interest in keeping the terrace. If we need to go to another material, then that's certainly something we would take into our consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any citizens here who wish to comment on this particular project? Okay, seeing none, go to the commission for a motion.
I move to approve it with the whole thing, like the patio in the front
Okay,
with
So-
the sandstone.
is there a second to that motion?
Just to clarify, your motion is to approve against staff.
Yeah.
So when you do that, you need to clarify why you're going against staff.
Oh, okay. I think the sandstone is actually a really nice choice for a material that does look historic, much more than concrete. And I think that this house could use some help. And in a design perspective, I think it would look a lot better if you actually did what your proposal. I think it's a great design plan, so.
Thank you.
And then, just to clarify, would that be, so you are going against condition number 1 of approval? Would you like the other 2 standard conditions of approval that are on most of our projects?
Yeah, your condition, so everything that you guys already approved except the thing that you denied, I think that with the sandstone is a yes. So
So just striking the first condition of approval and approving as submitted?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay. Just
That's
wanted to make sure.
Everything as submitted with all the standard conditions of the at the bottom, if that's correct. Is there a second to that? Did I ever hear a second? Okay. Let's maybe hear another motion. believe they're thinking. As am I. Just dangerous and good for all of us. Mary?
Well, I'm trying to decide how to offer an amendment.
Well, we don't have a motion on the floor yet.
Floor, so just
any
wait,
motion that you want to
yes.
put forth?
I'll just, yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
with staff conditions.
Okay. Just as staff recommendations, so no
Yes.
sandstone terrace. Okay. Madeline, is there a second to
Move
that?
approve with staff conditions, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay, Lisa? All right, now we can have some discussion here.
Clarification from staff. Are you, do you not like the use of sandstone specifically, or is it having a terrace there, or is it a combination of the two?
It's the utilization of sandstone in the walkway material, and then the location of the terrace.
Okay.
So,
It was also my understanding that it's not necessarily the sandstone, but the size of large stone. Is that correct or no?
no, so the sandstone is just not a typical material on the Franklin Road Historic District for features like that. And then the condition to avoid the use of large pavers or boulders
Right.
or any other impervious surface is just in general adding more hardscaping to the front yard.
Okay.
Well, my comment would be, I don't have a problem with the sandstone on the walkway. I feel like this is a rather one-off situation with the style of the house, the large lot. So I don't have a problem with that. I do have concerns about the terrace, because with the terrace comes furnishings, and you just don't know how busy that is going to get on that really iconic corridor into downtown. So I guess I would offer the amendment to approve everything with staff comments, except change the walkway to allow the permitted sandstone, which is the color of the foundation of the house.
So just to be clear, your amendment would be just to
Just
allow the sandstone for the
On
walkway.
walkway.
Okay.
Otherwise, as it was,
The motion was set
Yes.
forth.
yes.
Okay, is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second.
Okay, Lisa? Okay, so we're specifically talking about the motion to allow the sandstone for just the walkway. Patio's not in play right now.
Right.
So if there's any discussion on that,
Just for clarification, are you saying no terrace at all? Okay.
just the amendment for now is
Sure.
whether
Yeah.
we can use sandstone or not, and then we'll go back to
But
the main
everything
motion
else as
as
the,
staff
as
presented.
the motion.
Staff recommendations.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other discussion on it?
Can I ask a question about that? So we can't actually prohibit them from using furniture out there. So if we say no to the patio, couldn't they just lay out like a rug and put furniture anyway and have it look worse?
Absolutely.
Could,
They
yeah, they could.
But that would be, I mean, I would imagine they will put chairs out there.
Yeah.
But that's more of a semi-permanent thing.
Yeah. All right. Let's vote on the amendment to allow sandstone for the walkway. All those in favor of allowing the sandstone, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Okay. So our amended motion is to approve as staff has recommended, but allow the sandstone for the walkway. Okay. And that does include not approving the patio. Okay? Any discussion on this amended motion?
I mean, would we be open to approving the terrace with a different material?
I'm not sure how anybody feels about it. You're welcome to offer up an amendment to do that. I think based on our first motion, that was a variety of that didn't get a second.
Okay.
Maybe not, but you're welcome to offer up that motion.
Yeah, I'd like to open that up.
Okay. So you want to make an amendment? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to approve the terrace with a different material. That would be under staff's conditions.
Okay. Is there a second to the amendment?
I second.
Okay, Holly. Discussion?
What's the material?
Well, that's the question. We just amended it to include sandstone. So now
Now we're backtracking.
we're back to probably Holly's original motion, which is to approve a patio.
Yep.
That could have been sandstone at that point.
Are we under discussion?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
Feel
I
free.
think it's not appropriate to have the terrace, patio, whatever you want to call it, in the front yard. That's something that should be on the side or in the back. So I
Sure.
won't support
And
that.
that's what the guidelines recommend.
And I believe that, I'm not positive, but that may even get into a city of Franklin's codes-ish stipulation.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a zoning
Is
ordinance
do you
that.
know, can you have,
I don't believe that's a restriction in the zoning
okay, you
ordinance
can
to have the
terraces
hardscaping,
in your front yard?
as long as it's not in the setback, probably.
Okay.
Okay.
I think one of my concerns is what the size of the walkway would be coming off of that wide patio, that it would match proportionally.
Now you said the walkway. You're concerned about the width of the walkway.
Oh, I see. I see, they're separate. Well, and that it just seems that portion where the double door is would be, I think he mentioned this, not leading to anything.
Now is there a landing? There's a porch right in front of those doors, but it looks to be only a couple feet deep. I don't know how deep it is.
Well, it's not well illustrated. It's approximately 8 feet deep.
Okay. So there's a covered stoop of sorts.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you weren't able to do the terrace, how would that transition otherwise into the yard or not? How would that play out?
I think an organic garden path, a loose stone path with organic grout.
Okay.
All right, so we have an amendment on the floor to allow this patio in another material. Haven't necessarily defined that. And we have a second. So unless there's more discussion, we'll vote on that amendment specifically.
Well, maybe the material is to do the garden or something different than a terrace. Is that
Yeah.
a possibility?
I mean, if that's up to them, but right now we're just voting and talking about adding a terrace
Okay.
to the motion. So we have a motion on the floor that was to approve everything that staff recommended. Then we added sandstone as a material for just the walkway because staff recommended against the patio. And now we have an amendment to add the patio back in a different material.
With an unknown material.
Right. So let's vote on that amendment. All those in favor of adding the patio in a different material, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
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 Okay, so now we're back to the motion that has already been amended once to approve as staff presented with the allowance of sandstone as the walkway. Discussion? You want to vote? Let's vote.
Yes, please.
Okay. All those in favor of the amended motion to approve as staff presented with the allowance of sandstone as the material for the walkway, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay.
No.
Motion carries.
One no?
Yeah.
Oh.
So when I'm
Oh.
saying no, I'm meaning no, I think that it's okay to do the patio, not no, I don't want the sandstone. Am I right? Or-
Right. We were voting on the amended motion there.
Okay.
To allow the, yeah.
To allow sandstone on the walkway.
So-
and-
So I vote yes to allow sandstone, but.
Yeah, that was already voted on
yeah,
before.
Okay, but
Yep.
I think that that they should allow the patio, so,
Okay.
no.
Yeah. The motion still carries with no patio. So, but your dissent is noted. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Staff
you all.
will get back with you or the recap there because there was a lot going on.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 5. Consideration of alterations to the previously approved retaining wall and fencing at 904 Fair Street. And Emily gets her first report of the day.
First but not last one.
Okay. Okay, yeah, there was something happening. If you came from far off today, it
Oh,
was
really?
really far off today. I think, do we need to vote to move that to the end?
Let's go ahead and do that.
Okay.
I
So,
make that motion.
okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Mary and Bob, is there any, I don't know if there's any discussion to move an agenda item around. All those in favor of moving this,
Oh, hold up.
say no.
There it is.
All right, come on. Emily, if you're ready to do your report, and
I'm
then
gonna
we'll get Mr.
withdraw
Gamble.
my motion.
Thank you. As long as our second allows it. Thank you. Emily, please.
Yes. So, the construction of a retaining wall at 904 Fair Street was previously approved at the March 2024 Historic Zoning Commission meeting. The length of the approved wall was 13 feet 4 inches along the setback line. The wall was constructed and the length of the wall exceeded the approved COA. The property was issued a notice of violation and a stop work order. An application came before the Historic Zoning Commission during the August Historic Zoning meeting, but was deferred, and a site visit was scheduled to view the retaining wall. Then the proposal came before the Historic Zoning Commission at the October and November Historic Zoning meetings, where it was denied at both meetings. The built wall exceeds what was previously approved in terms of length along the property line. Since the November Historic Zoning Commission meeting, the design has been altered based on the feedback from the commission meetings. Along the side facing the fence and side property line, the wall height will decrease and the length of the wall will decrease as well from the previous submittal. The wall will be built to be 44 The wall was built to be 44 feet 8 inches in length, but the updated plan includes removing 22 inches of the existing wall, 22 feet of the existing wall, making the total length of the wall 22 feet 8 inches, which the October submittal removed 19 feet 2 inches of the wall. Additionally, the wall's height will be decreased facing the fence and side lot line for a decrease in height by 2 cement blocks, which is about 16 inches. Along the side, facing the rear property line, the height of the wall decreased from the previous 5 feet in height to a maximum of 4 feet 4 inches facing the rear property line. The concrete block wall does not meet the design guidelines recommendation, but the Historic Zoning Commission approved its construction as there was a precedent for a white concrete wall on the property previously. Part of this application proposes painting the concrete wall a cream color that will match the existing retaining wall on the property. Next, moving on to the second part of this application is the rear yard fence is proposed to be altered from 6 feet to 7 feet to minimize the view of the retaining wall from 9th Avenue North. The proposed fence height is appropriate within the guidelines. Since the retaining wall style and materials were previously approved by the Historic Zoning Commission, staff recommends approval of the added length of the wall and the added fence height with conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Mr. Gamble?
Hi, thank you, commissioners, and sorry to keep this suspenseful tonight. If you don't mind going to this slide that shows existing and proposed for me. At the last Historic Zoning Commission meeting, I heard you say that the 13-foot, 6-inch wall length was approved because you knew that it wasn't going to have visual impact along that side. It was proposed at the maximum height and was submitted and approved at the Building and Codes Department at that maximum height. But what I also heard was that square footage matters. And in this proposal, we are proposing a wall that is 22 foot 8 inches in length, so longer than the 13, but we are reducing its total square footage. So we're taking it down 16 inches in height. I did meet with the neighbors, had conversations with them, and their concern was that taller height. They were much happier with dropping it down another 16 inches. So while we are asking for the longer 22-foot wall, we are asking for a square footage comparable to what was previously approved. And so I heard that that was important. If you will go to, let's see, go forward 4 slides for me. It's page 6. One more. Here we go. This shows the reduction in height. And so at that 22-foot length, the wall would be about 2 feet out of the finished grade. And then at the corner where it makes a turn, it would be 3 foot 8 inches above the finished grade. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? I did want to say that we did receive a letter from a citizen. I think that was sent out when staff received it. We don't read those here, but we did receive comment on that. So, am I supposed to read this? Was submitted by Steve Scott in favor of the updated design that has been included in the public comment section of the agenda. Okay. At this time, let's go to the commission for a motion.
Move for approval with all 4 staff conditions.
Okay. Michael, Bob, thank you. Any discussion?
The
Yes, Mary.
only discussion I would have, and it's just my 2 cents, we do not control color, but I do think if we approve this, if this were painted more of a color that fit in with the landscaping, it would decrease its visibility. Usually white is used to increase visibility,
Okay.
but we don't control that. That's just a comment.
Sure. Michael, do you have something?
I feel like the changes the applicant made are acceptable.
Okay. Yeah.
I do
Bess?
think
Brian?
the changes in height are very positive, and I think that will impact the neighbor. I know we approved the 13 feet, and I've often said that with the 13 feet, if they want to leave that, we've already had a certificate of appropriateness for that. But if we go any further, it needs to meet the guidelines. And the guidelines simply state, doesn't matter the length, I think we've approved probably even more length, but it needs to be either brick or stone for that 22 feet. And that's how I interpret the guidelines on this.
Okay.
And I do want to bring up
Yes,
that
ma'am.
one of the conditions of approval is that the wall must be painted white or cream to reflect the material of the wall and match the existing wall on the property.
Our guidelines, I do not believe, allow us to stipulate color.
The guidelines specifically don't review lap siding color on residential structures. This is a bit different because it
But we
is
could on this.
a material that isn't recommended by the guidelines, and so staff has put forth the condition to paint it a cream
So we
or
can
white
control
color.
color.
Yes.
Okay?
Oh.
Well, and I think
I learned
when we
something new.
approved that original approval, I think there was some concern that it was proposed to be block, but the idea that they had cream painted block they were tying into, it's the same wall. That well, that was one of the things that played into our decision making. I'll say that, if I recall correctly. But that was, like you said, it was limited in scope to a certain extent, and now it's beyond that.
I do have one other question for the applicant, and it has to do with the fence. So I'm assuming that within this motion also includes raising the height of the fence from 6 to 7.
Yes, that's correct.
But I didn't see any kind of renderings of what that fence might look like.
It would be the same fence boards, but they would replace the 6-foot fence boards with 7-foot fence boards.
So there won't be any kind of topper or anything like, just the same look it is
the
now,
same look
just
that
the
it is
same
now.
boards.
That's right.
I think there was some concern they might just be scabbed on or nailed
No,
to the boards
would be
below.
replaced.
Okay. Any other thoughts from anybody else? Let's vote. So we have a motion to approve with staff conditions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no?
No.
No.
Okay, there's 2 noes. How many of us? There's 6 of us. All right, motion carries. Thank you for that. Item number 6. Consideration of refuse relocation and signage at 94 through 98 East Main Street. And Emily has our staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The buildings located at 9498 Main Street, East Main Street, has historically been a service station for vehicles since the late 1950s, with the addition of the 2 adjoining buildings closest to the Harpeth River, which have been estimated to be constructed in the 1970s. The proposal includes the following alterations: relocating the refuse area and signage for the historic service station, which is closest to the intersection of East Main and First Avenue. So for the refuse relocation, the existing refuse area is located behind the building. And so here on this image on the screen, it's at location A, and it is closest to the Harpeth River. Based on information from previous meetings, the refuse area is proposed to be expanded to accommodate the new businesses in the buildings. Since the refuse area is in the flood fringe overlay, the structure is deemed non-conforming as it is existing. The proposal is to relocate the structure to a landscape pad that fronts First Avenue North, and that is in location B on this image, or in location C. The refuse area will be dark screening that is utilized to screen the back of house equipment at the rear of the buildings. No material specifications were provided within the application. The zoning ordinance requires the following for refuse areas. Refuse areas such as dumpsters, trash compaction, garbage or recycling collection, or similar service areas shall be located away from frontages and to the side or rear of the building and at least 5 feet from any lot line. Walls shall be provided to fully screen refuse areas from public view and be no less than 6 feet in height. The wall shall be opaque and constructed of brick or stone materials that complement the main colors and materials of the associated building they serve. Gates shall be opaque and designed to complement the wall materials. To allow dumpster gates to remain closed as often as possible, either a pedestrian door, wall offset for pedestrian access, or self-closing gate shall be provided. The guidelines recommend that site and setting alterations should be considered as appropriate when they are undertaken in locations that are not visible from public view, do not involve the removal of historic features, and do not detract from or overwhelm the context of the historic districts. As proposed, the location is not permitted by the zoning ordinance and not appropriate per the design guidelines. Then moving on to the new signage. So new signage is proposed on the building that was historically the filling station that will be closest to the intersection of East Main Street and First Avenue. The sign is proposed to be 27.53 square feet, and will be composed of aluminum letters. The sign is proposed to be situated above the 2 garage doors to the right of the main entrance of the building. The majority of the sign will be situated in the white area of the facade, while the bottom part of the sign will be located in the blue banding on the building. There is an existing gooseneck light above the garage doors that may be utilized to illuminate the sign. The guidelines recommend the following for wall signs. One should use traditional sign placement to enhance the architectural elements on the facade. The sign area is recommended to be 9 square feet and proportionate to the building facade and other signage. The color recommendation is that it is a maximum of 3 colors with a darker background color than the lettering color, using muted colors that complement the facade, although vibrant colors may be considered as an accent. The sign exceeds the sign area maximum recommended by the guidelines. However, the proposed sign size does meet the zoning ordinance requirements for wall signs. The guidelines recommend utilizing vibrant colors as an accent and utilizing muted colors for the majority of the sign. As proposed, the red color is used as the entire letter color on a portion of the sign, and it is not utilized as an accent. Additionally, the sign is not situated between the blue banding of the building, which goes against the guidelines recommendation of utilizing traditional sign placement to enhance the architectural elements of the facade of the building. Staff recommends denial of relocating the refuse area based on the following grounds and the signage. That per the zoning ordinance, refuse areas such as dumpsters, trash compaction, garbage, or recycling collection shall be located away from frontages or to the side of the rear of the building. Walls shall be provided to fully screen the refuse areas from public view and be no less than 6 feet in height. Per the guidelines, site and setting alterations should be considered as appropriate when they are undertaken in locations that are not visible from public view. The guidelines recommend a maximum sign area for wall signs on commercial buildings to be 9 square feet and proportionate to the building facade and other signage. The guidelines recommend utilizing traditional sign placement to enhance architectural elements on the facade. And the guidelines recommend utilizing a maximum of 3 colors and with a darker background color than the lettering color, using muted colors that complement the facade, and vibrant colors could be used as an accent. If the commission were to approve the refuse area location and signage, there are recommended conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant wants to come forward. Excuse me. We have Mark Kozewski.
Tyler Etienne, 9498 East Main Street, Franklin. I'm the tenant and owner of Slice House. So I appreciate your attention this evening. I do have a few comments. Should I start with the dumpster?
Wherever you want to start.
Start with the dumpster. So just a couple things I want to note. So the current enclosure doesn't accommodate the current trash and oil container. You can see, like any pictures that show, you can see that the trash container and the oil actually take up 1.5 parking spots. The current enclosure is the main entranceway into the River Restaurant on the side. So from the parking lot to get to the main entrance, that's like in the main travel egress, and that's a big part of why we're trying to relocate that. It's also adjacent to the rear and side patios, so people that are dining in in that restaurant is basically sitting near the trash enclosure. So that's why we're also trying to relocate that. We were instructed that we can't modify or eliminate any parking spots, so we've presented 2 solutions that do that. And then we're also working we weren't supposed to put anything in the flood zone. So that's why the one, I think solution A, option A, puts it in the little triangle. That is closer to the street. The setback per the zoning ordinance is 5 feet. I think that one, the closest part to the street, is 11 feet. So we fall within that. Last time I was at the DRC meeting, you guys suggested looking at the top triangle there. So that's why we came up with option B. We would be fine doing that. It just puts it in the flood zone. So we're kind of in the same situation that we're currently in with the flood. But if you were to allow that, we would be open to exploring that option as well. there was comments about the material of the enclosure. At the last DRC meeting, we mentioned using the same screening material that was already approved for the rear mechanical yards. Basically a dark wood finish. There's no stone or brick anywhere on this property, so that's why we're presenting using the wood material. And I think that covers it for the dumpster.
Okay. You want to go over signage?
Sure.
Okay.
So as I mentioned at the DRC meeting, with the sign, I'm applying for a band sign. I know we keep mentioning a wall sign, but I think this applies as a band sign. I can't read anywhere in the guideline that says this wouldn't be a band sign. Based on the band sign regulations, I'm allowed 1 square foot per linear foot of building width. That building width is 41 feet, so that's why my first proposal was at 39 square feet. Hearing your feedback about minimizing the size, I went back and worked with the sign designer, and they minimized it to 37 square feet. The placement of it, at the DRC meeting, it was mentioned that band signs are meant to be above the front entrance of it, but per the guidelines, it says that the sign can be placed on the flat fascia above the entrance, vertically aligned with the center of an architectural element such as the retail storefront, tenant space entrance, or centered above the overall space occupied by the business. The proposed sign is exactly where the Burger Dandy sign was before me. Their sign will also overlap the white and blue parts of the portion of the building. So I got the slice house to fit within the white part. The by Tony Gemini, I put in the blue part of the band to fit. If I was to shrink that down to 9 square feet, I can't even imagine how small that would be on my building. So that's why I propose what it is. I'm applying this as a band sign and not the wall sign. Regarding the colors, I did already modify the logo to meet the 3 color requirements. That red is our color. It's a specific PMS color, so changing that red is not really an option. I guess I would have to look at something else if that wasn't approved, but that red is our red of our logo. And I think that covers all of it. Sorry
Okay.
for the long report.
No, that's good. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
All right. If you'll grab a seat for us, we may call you up to ask questions. But are there any community members that would like to speak on this project? Okay. Seeing none, let's break this up into 2 pieces, if that's okay. Let's talk about the refuse enclosure first. So if somebody has a motion just specific to the refuse enclosure, let's start there.
Move to deny the relocation of the refuse containers.
Okay, Brian, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mary, is there any discussion?
I would like to discuss why not C. Not just that it's not in the floodplain, but also it moves it very near to historic bridge ruin landmark that one day will probably become either an overlook or some kind of little park. And I don't think it'd be appropriate to have a refuge area near that either.
Okay.
You mean B? Was it B?
Well, on what I'm seeing on my plan, it says C.
C.
It's the upper left corner
Oh.
on the drawing. I think.
It
I
is.
can't see it from here.
Yeah,
is the upper
A
left.
is existing.
Yes, ma'am.
B is in the little triangle landscape pad, and then C is kind of closer
Okay.
to the river, kind of where Brian was talking about, where the historic road was.
Any other thoughts? Yeah, I am sympathetic to the idea that the trash is right at the back of this building, and I don't see that the other options are better for everybody around them. And I know we approved sort of a trash enclosure at the factory that was sort of in front, but it's hard to tell fronts and backs at the factory. It's just so massive. And this just seems a little different because the road's a little smaller than Liberty Pike, certainly. And there's residential there, and it's just, to me, it seems like a lot of noise and view, even if it is enclosed in some way. It's still just, there's a reason that rule exists, and it's for all those reasons. So I tend to agree with the motion.
I understand their predicament. I really
Yeah.
do, but
Can I ask a question? Do we have a suggestion for them that is like a?
No, and we make suggestions at DRCs, but we don't necessarily give design feedback at the voting meetings. But yeah, and I think they've been responsive. What they're showing are options that we discussed with them, and I don't blame them for proposing them. I just don't see that they're better than what they have.
I feel like dumpsters are sometimes serviced in the middle of the night. That's just the truth. And I feel like this is for looking at the original downtown of Franklin. This is the most invisible place for it to be, and maybe there's going to have to be some working around that. I mean, it's a predicament. It is a highly visible
Yeah.
site, and that would be one of the reasons, in my mind, to not move it up toward the street.
Yeah. Any
But
other
I do,
thoughts?
the materials they're suggesting, I agree with.
Yeah, not introducing a new.
Yes.
Just using what's part of the palette. Okay.
Oh, can I ask a question too?
Sure.
So the one that's in the flood zone that's pretty far away from the building right now? So the concern was that that might be like by a park or something one day? Is that right?
Is there
Is there a
historic
way
landmark there?
that they could do that, but with a stipulation that if it does become a park, then they would have to relocate it? Can that be something, or is it more just that it
that
has to
wouldn't-
stay where it is?
To me, that wouldn't apply to where we are today. So Bridge Street is where the original bridge crossed the Harpeth River. There have been at least 8 bridges between where Bridge Street is and where Franklin Road is today. There was no bridge there until the 1920s. But the old bridge abutments are still there. And even the pylons where it crossed, and that would be very near this location C. I think it'd just be a bad precedent and a bad idea for it to go there.
And it
Yeah.
also moves it into a floodplain.
It does.
Yeah. It's just a different place in the floodplain.
But
Oh.
C is up against the street.
Yeah, it's against
It
the
is.
It would
street as well.
definitely
I
be
mean,
more
to
visible.
me,
Right.
that's the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's option A where it's at now. It's the best place for this corner lot. Anything else puts it too close to residential.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that's where the entrance is to the Riverside Restaurant. I mean, I think that's the issue for the client. But not so much in what I have to consider where the guidelines are concerned.
Right. Yeah, and I like I said, I feel like that where it is today is better than the other options, because otherwise I feel like we're trading the convenience and preference of the business owner over the rest of the neighbors and community, and that's
Right. 'cause
I don't
this
feel good about that.
background aerials,
Yeah.
10 years old plus.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think it was Mary's recommendation last time to change it from the white to the darker color in that location with the trees behind it, and especially at nighttime. I don't know that people are really going to be paying attention to that. So I do think that's the best location too.
Okay. All right, let's vote on a motion to deny the refuse enclosure relocation, if that's the right way to put it. All those in favor of the motion to deny, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no? Okay. So the ayes have that. Now let's talk about signage here.
Well, are we going to do we need to approve the enclosure material?
I think they have to submit a proposal that we can vote on.
Oh, I thought there was one. Okay.
I guess,
There was
yeah,
a drawing on
that's
mine.
points well taken.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Okay.
we voted on a motion to deny the relocation, but we could hear a motion to approve the existing location and it be reworked. But I think the only renderings we have are of the new one in the triangle. Is that?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'd like to see what the applicant, they may have a different idea. when they come before us next time on a
Okay.
refuse in the same, in that location.
But we did vote
Gotcha.
on the matter.
Okay.
Okay, just make sure and keep me straight on this, Blake. Okay, so let's do move on to signage here. Would you remind us of the recommendation for signage since it's been just a few minutes here?
Absolutely. So the proposed sign exceeds the square footage allotment. The guidelines recommend a maximum of 9 square feet, and the proposed sign is 27 square feet, 27.53 square feet. And we classified this as a wall sign since band signs are over the main entrance. And so this is going to be located in front of the garage doors, and so this will not be a main entrance. The main entrance to the building is located right here where my mouse is kind of going.
Okay.
Additionally, the guidelines recommend utilizing, well, let me say first, while it doesn't meet the design guidelines, it does meet the zoning ordinance for wall signs size.
And that's the section that the applicant was reading from, is that true? Or was he looking at the guidelines for?
He was looking at the guidelines if it were to be considered a band sign.
Okay,
But since it's not over an entrance, we classified this as a wall sign.
okay, understood.
The guidelines also recommend to use traditional sign placement to enhance the architectural elements of the facade. And as it is proposed, it is on the white banding, and then it also goes into the blue banding. And then additionally, the guidelines recommend a maximum of 3 colors, and you utilize muted colors that complement the facade and using vibrant colors as an accent.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. All right, so let's start with a motion from someone here, and then we'll get into some discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to defer to the next date certain,
Okay.
which would be January 13th.
Is there a second for deferral?
No.
Okay, hearing none, let's get another motion.
Make the motion to approve the sign as submitted in the location it's submitted.
Okay,
I second that.
okay, so that's Holly, Michael. Michael, do you have, you want to go through your reasoning for going against staff recommendation?
Yes, this is an existing building, and there's a canopy coming out from the front door, which if you put the sign above it, as discussed, it would block the view from passersby, or could block some of the view of the sign itself.
Okay. Holly, did you have anything to add as the second?
Yeah, I think on this type of building, the sign's well placed. It's well balanced. It's not, I don't think it's the same type of building as the historic downtown building. So I think having a different sign, especially a bigger one, would be reasonable. And as far as the color goes, I think it works well with the blue. And it's not meant to be a neutral color or a neutral building. It's kind of more of a playful mid-century type of look. So I think the sign adds to the historic look of it. It gives it kind of that 1950s look that it already has, or it's
Okay.
trying to have.
Okay. Anybody else? Miss Mary?
Since would the people, would you folks comment on the color, since that was something the staff
Sure.
said?
Sure.
I
think
was gonna
go ahead.
make a comment about the color. I just feel like in this case, with it already having a white background, it wouldn't even show up if it were, I mean, maybe if it were black, but I think the color's right for this.
Okay.
And isn't this the company's color logo?
Well, we have in the past gone against a logo color that was presented. I personally don't think this is a very bright red, but if the color could be brought to staff to make sure that it reads like on the screen, that would be helpful.
And I do want to clarify that within the recommended conditions, conditions 4 was the red color on the sign should be darkened to align with the guidelines. 5 was the sign finish must be a matte finish to align with the guidelines, and those were the two. Oh, and then the sign area should be situated in the white part of the building and not encroach into the blue striping of the building. And so we just kind of wanted clarification if those
Sure.
wanted to stay with the motion.
So the Michael, you made the motion. Are you okay with those conditions, or how do you feel about those?
I am okay with 5. The sign must be a matte finish to align with the guidelines, but not as much on darkened of the red color.
Okay. And then the white that's in the blue. Any issue with that?
No problem with the text that's in the blue stripe.
So let's, if somebody wants to make an amendment just to make sure those things are really clear, I would encourage you to do that.
I would make an amendment that it seems appropriate to encroach on the blue
Okay.
with the name, and that the red color that we are seeing, that we are approving, that be brought to, that the color be brought to staff to make sure it's compliant with what we're seeing.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
You'll second that? Okay. Thank you, Madeline. All right, so we have an amendment to allow the encroachment of the name on the blue and that the red color be brought back to staff.
To make sure that it's what looks like what we see on the screen. I'm not
Sure.
proposing that we change the color.
Well, what I'd say is that's a little. I'm cautious about putting that on staff because we're looking at video screens and projectors, and they're looking
Do
at
you have that color
computers. And
with you?
PMS color specified on
yeah, but a printer prints out a PMS color, and then it's whatever the printer thought it was. It's not a Pantone deck, which is what we really need to see the real color. So, asking staff to do that, I don't want to put them in a spot where they're like, I don't know, it looks like it, or it doesn't. It's tough, is what I'm saying, to judge. But we do have a motion and a second, as such, that color be brought back to staff. So we can discuss the amendment.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So Pantone decks are expensive. So is he just supposed to buy a deck and bring them the color, or can it just be that it needs to look like this picture? And if it doesn't, that's kind of his issue.
Well,
to
that's
fix.
what we're going to vote on, whether staff has to approve it, and then they get to decide what they need to feel comfortable.
Can we restate the amendment before we?
That the folks who made the amendment would have to do that.
I'm happy to restate it if there's something better, just a way
No,
to say
I
it.
just wanted to be reminded of what you said.
Oh, I can restate it.
Yeah.
That the Tony Giamanotti, I'm not saying that correctly, that name intruding on the blue is, in this particular case, for the reasons that have been given, is appropriate, and that the Slice House, as we're looking at it on the screen, appears to me to not be a bright red. It appears to be a muted brick, more of a muted brick red, and that the color come back to staff to assure that we're not getting some very, bright red color.
Okay. Yeah, what I have written down is the encroachment of the white name and the blue is okay, and that the red color be brought back to staff. Okay.
The only other question I have is if the color, if that's something that could be, the color for the red specifically, if that's something that could be deferred to the DRC meeting.
Let's not jerk this applicant around any longer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've broken it up into pieces here
Yeah.
to make it a little simpler. You know, I can't tell you that you can't make a motion to defer, but we'd have to see if you get a second and we vote it to be deferred.
Okay. I'm
So-
good with what Mary stated.
Yeah.
Are you, I restated, is that what
Right.
you thought you seconded?
Yes, and
Yeah,
I,
that's,
Mhm.
okay.
All right, so let's vote on the amendment, okay, which is to allow the name in the blue stripe and that the red color be brought back to staff for approval, okay? All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
No,
No.
no.
There's 2 noes. Okay. All right, now we're back to the original motion, which is approve the signage as submitted with the encroachment in the blue and that the red color be brought back to staff. Is there any
And-
discussion on that specifically?
And Michael added that the finish must be a matte finish
Yes.
to
Yeah.
align with the guidelines.
Yeah, it's I said with staff conditions,
Okay.
right? Yeah, except the ones that we just amended. All right, any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to bring the conversation back to size.
Okay.
Because, and I'm wondering, is what we're seeing, is that to scale? Are we actually seeing the way the sign is laid out at basically 2.5 feet by 10 feet? Is that reflected in what we're seeing in that drawing?
Is it scale? Yeah, the applicant says
Because-
yes.
Because 10 feet seems to me a fairly substantial sign, for that building.
Okay.
Because we're going from a guideline of 9 square feet to 27 in our approval. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be larger. I'm just asking that of
Yeah.
the board.
I'll give my 2 cents on all this. If that sign were over the front door, it'd be allowed to be that big. So I'm okay with it there. It seems like that's the right spot for it. That's where the signage has been historically too on other businesses. Don't have a problem with the lettering in the white. Don't really have a problem with the red on this particular building, which, as Holly said, is a different generation than the rest of Main Street.
Right.
I mean, realistically. So I don't have a problem with how it's set up just as shown. And like I said, I have some concerns about the red having to go back to staff because now they have to make a judgment call and hope we're happy with it. And I think that's a dangerous place to put them. If we like that, what they're going to try and use is their red. That is their
Right.
red. We don't know exactly what that is, but I can almost promise you that this projector and our computer screens are darker than the real color. Almost all screens are, especially projectors. So I think it's going to be bright, but it doesn't really bother me on this building. That's my thoughts on it. Molly?
I just wanted to mention that even if the red ends up brighter than we see here, the letters are skinny and the chances of the brighter red ruining the look of the building I think are very, very small.
Yeah. Well taken. Thank you. Shall we vote? Let's raise our hands because I think we're going to have a mixed bag here. All those in favor of the amended motion to approve as submitted with staff comments, but allowing encroachment on the blue and the red color to be brought back to staff, please say aye.
You told us to raise our hands.
Say aye too.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, hold on. I'm
Do you
not
wanna vote?
entirely sure how to, I think it should be approved, but I don't think they should have to bring the color to staff. So I don't know.
Well,
what
that
means.
already got voted on, so you have to vote on this particular amended motion, not whether you like every piece of it, but if you want to move forward or not.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so all those in favor of the motion as amended, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6 yeses. Okay, and the opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, 2 noes. Okay, the motion passes. The sign is approved as submitted, but you have to bring your red back to staff. I have no idea what
No,
that means.
Just show
Color sample.
the sign company is going to have the color.
They'll have a deck.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Number 7. Consideration of preliminary historic zoning commission recommendation for a proposed hotel parking structure and partial demolition at 230 Franklin Road, the factory. Emily is going to start us off with a staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Historic Zoning Commission provides preliminary recommendations to other city review bodies on development applications in the historic preservation overlay, where certain contextually sensitive design features become entitled prior to a certificate of appropriateness review. The Historic Zoning District Design Guidelines are used by the Historic Zoning Commission to consider exterior alterations that may affect the historic integrity and context of properties within the historic preservation overlay. The Historic Zoning Commission provides preliminary recommendation at an early stage in the review process for development plans. These recommendations are then provided to the Planning Commission and then the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. The Historic Zoning Commission reviews the proposal in light of the design guidelines for consistency with the historic district and potential impact to historic resources within the district. Considerations include building locations, the rhythm of buildings along streetscapes, setbacks, building types and their heights, massing, and scale. Locations of proposed parking, drive aisles, and landscape and hardscape features are also reviewed. The development is proposed at 230 Franklin Road at the Factory of Franklin. Alterations and partial demolition to 2 buildings that are listed as contributing on the National Register for Historic Places and the construction of a parking garage and hotel are proposed. The Factory at Franklin is listed on the National Register for Historic Places for its significance in the areas of commerce and industry. The application has appeared before the Design Review Committee meeting to discuss the various portions of the proposal at 7 meetings, including 1 site visit early on in the process. Not all aspects of the proposal within the application appeared at every meeting to receive feedback. Throughout attending these DRC meetings, the applicant has incorporated feedback into each application in order to better meet the intent of the Historic District Design Guidelines. And so let me scroll a little bit. Let me get a good aerial for us. We'll just stick with that one. So part of the proposal includes partial demolition of Building 9 and incorporating Building 10, which is a standalone building on the site, to have the non-historic additions to be removed and to be partly enclosed in the proposed new hotel building. The footprint of the new hotel building will include demolishing approximately 50% of Building 9 and then converting the remaining portion of the building into an open-air, mostly roofless structure. A building is deemed contributing due to its significance to the site and if its absence would lead to a negative impact on the site. The State Historic Preservation Office indicated that a building that is still contributing and as it still retains its historic features should remain. For a building to remain contributing, it should visually read like it did during the period of significance and retain its features and read as it did during the period of significance. As shown in the plans, removing approximately 50% of the footprint of the building and removing a large part of the roof to be an open-air structure would not meet the Secretary of Interior standards nor the design guidelines, as it would not retain the features of the building that are considered important to the structure. The guidelines state that the demolition is highly discouraged unless there are extraordinary circumstances to maintain the integrity and sense of place associated with Franklin's historic districts. Demolition may only be approved if the Historic Zoning Commission deems one or more of the following conditions met. So, one of the first conditions is if a building has lost its architectural and historical integrity and its removal would not adversely affect the district's historic character. The proposal states that the building has lost its architectural and historical integrity. However, the State Historic Preservation Office provided recent feedback that Building 9 was considered contributing and has not lost its historical integrity, and its removal would have a negative impact to the site. The demolition and wholesale replacement and alterations to the remaining portion of the structure could lead to potential removal of the building's status as a contributing structure to non-contributing. Staff agrees with this assessment. The second criteria is if the denial of the demolition will result in an unreasonable economic hardship. In reviewing an application to remove a historic structure, the Commission may consider economic hardship based on the following information. The current level of economic return, any listing of the property for sale or rent, price asked, and offers received, if any, within the previous 2 years, including testimony and relevant documents, feasibility of an alternative uses for the property that could earn a reasonable economic return, and expert testimony or opinion on the feasibility of rehabilitation or reuse of the existing structure by an architect, developer, real estate consultant, appraiser, and/or any other real estate professional experienced in historic properties and rehabilitation. The proposal includes a cost comparison to both 1. Rehabilitate Building 9, and 2. To demolish the building and rebuild it completely for several use concepts. To rehabilitate the building with tenants, the estimated cost would be a minimum of $2.5 million based on one of the reports submitted by the applicant. The second report comments that cost to repair and reconstruct the building for use as a leasable asset therefore ranges from 3.4 to 4.2 times the building value. With rehabilitating the building to suit the needs of potential tenants ranging from office use to restaurants and a brewery, the estimate of the rehabilitation ranges from $3.7 million to $4.3 million. The as-is value of the building is a little over $1 million. Within the reports, there is not documentation that notes the pricing of the building as was wholesale, as if it was wholesale demolished and reconstructed exactly as it stands. The documentation that is within the application shows 3 potential options for tenants and how the building would need to be retrofitted to accommodate these new uses. The third criteria is if the structural instability or deterioration of a property is demonstrated through a report by a structural engineer or architect. A structural engineer's report was included within the application that notes how the building does not meet today's requirements and code regulations. Elements could be replaced in kind as part of a rehabilitation of the building in order to maintain the building's contributing status and original form. For Building 10, the demolition of a non-historic additions are proposed to this building. They were added in circa 2015 and were reviewed by the Historic Zoning Commission. For the Farmers Market Pavilion, the existing pavilion structure where the Farmers Market is held is not shown on the plans, and it appears that it is not drawn in the future plans on this site. While it does appear to be a modern structure, a COA will be required prior to any demolition. So then moving on to the proposed development of the hotel building. The average height of the buildings on the factory campus is 39 feet and a half inch in height. With the recommendation of the 10% height addition, the height recommendation would equate to 42 feet 11 inches. The proposed height of the 3-story building exactly meets the design guidelines recommendation is proposed to be 42 feet 11 inches. The proposed hotel building will be located fronting Liberty Pike, constructed partially in the footprint of Building 9 in addition to the other factory buildings. The footprint of the new building will include demolishing approximately 50% of Building 9 and then converting the remaining portion of the building into a roofless structure. Additionally, the new building will involve encompassing Building 10 into the proposed new construction of a much larger scale building. The circa 2015 addition on the building will be removed to show the historic form of the building and will be adaptively reused partially within the new hotel building. For the parking garage, it is proposed to be located by buildings 3 and 5 on the factory campus, which will face the Harpeth Industrial Court. The proposed height of the 3-story parking structure mostly meets the design guidelines recommendation. It is proposed to be 39 feet 4 inches at the top floor level of the garage, and it will measure 42 feet 10 inches at the top floor guardrail. There are 2 emergency egress stairwells on the structure that will measure 43 feet 8 inches in height and 47 feet in height. Both stair towers exceed the design guidelines recommendation for height of new structures. The location of one of the egress stairs has been moved so as not to be visible from Franklin Road. At certain vantage points, the parking garage is visible from Franklin Road and Liberty Pike, but the feedback from the November Historic Zoning Commission and DRC meetings have been incorporated into the design to reduce the height of the stair towers. Additional renderings have been provided to show how far back on the parking garage will be set back from Franklin Road and how the structure will appear with cars on it. Information on how the new structure will connect to buildings 3 and 5 have been provided within the application, and the renderings show that flashing between the new parking garage and the existing buildings 3 and 5 will connect the buildings. Further information on how the flashing will connect the new structure to the historic buildings will need to be provided when seeking a COA from the Commission to ensure proper drainage and to maintain the long-term health of the historic buildings. For the scale and setback, the height has been stepped back closest to Liberty Pike, but the building, including the portico share, is in line with Building 12, which is known as Liberty Hall. The guidelines recommend locating new buildings to be secondary in prominence to the historic structures on the site or in the district. New buildings should not block the view of the historic buildings from public view sheds so as that the historic buildings retain their prominence. As it is proposed, the view shed of the historic buildings from the east and southeast are being blocked by the proposed hotel from Liberty Pike view perspectives. The updated renderings within the application show views from Franklin Road looking down to the new hotel building, showing that the new building does not block the views of historic buildings on the factory campus from the west from Franklin Road. Further, across the railroad tracks, which is outside of the historic preservation overlay, the height of the multifamily buildings are also taller than what is proposed at the factory. While the application notes that Liberty Pike is not a historic road, the zoning ordinance and design guidelines determine that the public view shed is from the road and the age of the road does not affect this determination. For architectural features, the architectural detailing will be further reviewed as part of the COA application, and within the staff report comments that there should be addressed prior to COA and site plan approval. So for the recommendation, it is recommended that the Historic Zoning Commission make a preliminary recommendation for denial for the proposal to the Franklin Municipal Planning Commission and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for the elements of the proposal related to the Historic District Design Guidelines. Specifically, the elements of the proposal that did not meet the guidelines are: demolition of half of the contributing Building 9 is not supported by the guidelines. Demolition is highly discouraged unless there are extraordinary circumstances so as to maintain the integrity and sense of place associated with Franklin's historic districts. 2, new buildings should not block the view of historic buildings from public view sheds so that the historic buildings retain their prominence. And 3, the egress stair towers on the parking structure exceed the recommended height for new commercial buildings. Please note that this is at this preliminary stage, and the Commission is providing an initial recommendation to the Planning Commission and the BOMA on whether this conceptual proposal, as presented today, meets the intent of the guidelines. If the development plan is approved by the BOMA, the Historic Zoning Commission will further review the proposal for consideration of a COA prior to site plan approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Take a deep breath. All right, if the applicant would come forward.
Hi, my name
Mr.
is
Gamble?
Greg Gamble with Gamble Design Collaborative, representing Holiday Properties, the owners of the factory here in Franklin. And we're excited to bring you the next phase in the master planning process of the factory. Would you mind going to page 43 for me in the PDF? Hoping you can just type it in and pop right up. All right, so on the top, we have the existing factory as it is today. You can see buildings 9 and 10 represented on the right side, adjacent to the existing parking lot. And below is the proposed layout. We are asking for your recommendation tonight to the Planning Commission as it relates to site plan, the master plan, as it relates to building location, mass, form, height, scale, those elements. We're going to be bringing back to you the final elevations on the architecture once we go through the development plan process. The development plan process takes time. We're not scheduled to be in front of the Planning Commission until February, and then March, April, May would be board and mayor and alderman meetings, so likely wouldn't be back in front of the Historic Zoning Commission for several months. We believe that we have located the garage and the hotel in this master plan on this campus in locations that are secondary and subsidiary to the factory. Liberty Pike is curving, and we have located the hotel behind the main facades of the architecture of the building. Right now, the existing parking lot, the trees that are in the parking lot, the future landscaping that we're going to be bringing to this parking lot will also create view barriers to the factory. But once you're around the curve and once you're past Daniels Drive, the factory elevations are not obscured. And the hotel is in a secondary location. You're also going to be making a recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Today, in the zoning ordinance, we are prohibited from having parking in front of the building, between the parking and Liberty Pike. The Board of Zoning Appeals approved a variance request for parking located between the building and Franklin Road, and between buildings 13 and 14 and Franklin Road. So those parking areas already have a variance approved by BZA. There are 54 existing parking spaces that are between Liberty Hall and Liberty Pike. We are going to be changing that area. We're removing 46 parking spaces that are in front of the building. That is now going to be an internal drive. All buildings are required, new buildings, are required to front either public streets or internal drives. So if we moved the hotel somewhere else, we would have to create an internal drive that would allow it to comply with current zoning. Where we have the hotel located right now, we are in compliance with the internal drive requirement for those new structures. However, if you look on the existing plan on the right, there are 6 parking spaces right there that we're leaving that are not in compliance with today's requirements. Why is that? Because those 6 parking spaces are closer to the street than the front of the building. We are going to be adding an additional 14 parking spaces that you can see along the bottom of the proposed, right there, across from Jameson Station. So 14 additional parking spaces that would not be in compliance. So we're going to the Board of Zoning Appeals and asking for a variance. So your consideration tonight to the Planning Commission recommending this site modifications will also be carried forward to the Board of Zoning Appeals for their consideration as well. So wanted to just point that out, make sure you're aware of it, but we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. Benton Smothers would like to add to this presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smothers.
Hey, everybody. So this HCC is following up the last DRC that was well attended. I think we had 6 or 7 members, and it was kind of a marathon session, so appreciate that. We very much appreciate you all for being part of that. That got a lot done. We went from 5 staff items in the last month's meeting. We're 3 now. We addressed all 3 in the DRC, and the majority of the DRC members supported all 3, the variances to all 3. The first one is the demo rehab of Building 9. A few things on this. I know that, any demolition does not meet guidelines, and so there's a process for going through it. And so we have gone through that process. I will say that, we keep saying building. It's not a building. It's it's a pole barn. It's a 85-year-old pole barn. The definition of a building in the Franklin zoning code is a fully enclosed structure with a roof and walls. Historically, this was open air, dirt floor, exposed footings. It's not a building. It's been Frankensteined into a building, but it also has been modified. A lot of the elements, the historic elements have been modified, but even still, it's structurally deficient. We provided a structural engineer's report citing all the reasons, and that's in the package as well. The idea, this was in the staff report too, that it could be, elements of it could be reconstructed. That's not true. We're talking about a big, a point where it becomes a replica structure. We met with SHPO, and a replica structure is not going to be a contributing structure. We also talked with SHPO, and I will say that there is no contributing structure status. That's been talked about a little bit. That's in the staff report. There's no such thing. There's a contributing structure that goes into an application for a National Register application, the submittal for the application, but there's no loss thereafter. So really the only thing is the National Register status, and we specifically met with SHPO to determine that. And because this is about 5% of the property, it's in the back of the property, it's of tertiary importance to the historical nature of the factory. They told us point blank that it would not affect the National Register status. So again, this is a process we're going through. We think we've hit all the points within the guidelines, and that's in the package that was submitted. To the visibility of the hotel in relation to historic buildings, or the historic buildings in relation to the hotel. Again, this was something that's the location massing was supported in the last DRC. It's still in the staff report, but I think that the guidelines, and Emily, would you go to the staff rebuttal document on page 7? The guidelines provide for a new structure being built in the same block face next to an historic structure. And in this package, we show the image. It's going to block the side of a building. And so it's just a fact of building within the block face. Yeah, there you go. The orange highlighted building is the new one. And now this is an example of height. We meet the height, but it's the same thing. It's blocking the side of the building. We've seen conditions, if you keep scrolling, Emily, there's some other situations here with the Harpeth Hotel, blocking some buildings. If you keep going, there's a couple of examples. There you go. That's the Landmark Books. That's a circa 1806 building. Lower image, you see example of building in the block face. You're going to partially block a building. But that doesn't mean it's against the guidelines. The third item is the stair tower height of the garage, and this is really the only actionable change to the package since the DRC was related to the garage. There were some additional exhibits that were asked for by the DRC that we've provided. Gina can talk a little bit about that too, but in general, the DRC supported what we're doing here. We did a few things. We reduced the overall height of the garage. The overall height of the garage is below the standards, but we still lowered it a little bit, I think about 2 or 3 feet. I'll let Gina confirm, which lowered everything. And we modified the location of one of the stairs. So one was already out of view. Now there are 2 stair towers that were required per code for egress. Those are the two elements that are above the guidelines for height, and that's about 6% of the overall facade. So this is a minor variance is what we're asking for. One was already located, so it was out of view from the street behind the buildings. The other one was moved per DRC request further back so that it's pretty much in line with the parapet of the garage from Franklin Road. You still can't see it from Liberty Pike. And then we did provide some alternates that were requested and some other images that were requested at DRC regarding the roof profile of the stair tower. And we've got an option of parapet versus guardrails. All that stuff I think can be dealt with in the COA, but we did provide those for the press. So. So.
Thank you. Ms. Emanuel, you have a couple brief comments, please?
Sure. I'll just add a couple items to what Benton noted. And Emily, it might help to go to the supplemental documentation, if you don't mind, of, yeah, and it's the second to last page of the Centric documents. So I thought I'd just trace back what's changed on the garage, as Benton noted. When we first started out, the egress stair house height was 50 feet. Then we did some redesign, lowered the building, and the two stair towers, both of them went to 47 feet. And then in our last meeting and currently, what we've done is we've done some further redesign of the garage. One of them still is at 47 feet, but we've relocated it. So the one it was previously, I have a little exhibit showing all this all the way across. We were previously showing one closer to Franklin Road. We've shifted that more toward the center of the garage. And the other stair tower is now at 43.8. And so both of those, we've just subsequently brought them down all the way through to where you don't see the stair tower from Franklin Road at all. One of the options we looked at, if you want to go a few pages through here, there's an exhibit where you'll see 3. It's the second to last page. Does not go on bed if you want to keep going. There, right there. This is the show in the document that I'm talking about where it's moved. We looked at also moving that stair tower to the center, closer to Liberty Pike side. If we go to the next page, there should be an exhibit that shows that. You would see that from Franklin Road, and so we didn't think that that was a good move, so we shifted it back and made sure we lowered the height. In addition to that, I think we had talked about the elements that might reduce the mass of the stair tower, as Benton mentioned too, and you can see that one here as well, where we sloped the top. It didn't seem to fit as well with the architecture after we put it in there, but we wanted to at least show you that we did study it. There are further images in here if you all want to look at between the more solid parapet and the guardrail as well. So we could see
Okay.
this if you'd like.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So just a reminder here that this is a preliminary recommendation. Okay. And we've talked a lot about what that means and what language to use, and really we're voting on the overall kind of general direction as it relates to the guidelines, that we think it's headed in the right direction or not, and that it would be, its trajectory would be that it's heading towards a COA when we do get to review it again. So we'll get an opportunity to see it again, but I'm going to read our little disclaimer here that this preliminary stage HCC is providing an initial recommendation to the Planning Commission and BOMA on whether its conceptual proposal as presented meets the intent of the guidelines. If the development plan is approved by BOMA, the HCC will further review the proposal for consideration of a COA prior to site plan approval. So not the last time we get to see it. So not a motion for a COA, but I would entertain a motion for a favorable or a denial recommendation to BOMA and the Planning Commission, and apparently Board of Zoning Appeals as well.
Motion, motion to recommend denial.
Okay. Lisa, motion to deny. Is there a second to the motion to deny? Okay. Hearing none, let's have another motion, please.
I make a motion for a favorable recommendation to the Planning Commission and Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Okay.
Second.
Michael and Bob, would you like to add the BZA in there as well? Zoning appeals, is that what the board's called here? I work in a lot of other jurisdictions. I get
Recommendation
confused.
goes forward to the other two bodies. It comes back here automatically, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't have to include us again on that, do I?
No, it's just going to be for BZA, Planning Commission, and
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
And Mr. Orr, if you would, since it's against the recommendation of staff, just go through your reasoning there for the record.
Yes. Although I highly appreciate staff's opinion on their interpretation of the guidelines, I believe that what has been presented today is right in line with how I interpret those guidelines.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve a favorable recommendation to BOMA and the Planning Commission. Let's have some discussion, please.
I've got some questions. Was the nomination for the factory done as a campus?
I believe it was, and then the buildings are, I believe that there's either 6 or 9 buildings that are on the campus. I think of those 9, 6 are considered contributing.
Okay, so that, and I appreciate the square footage so much, you all. On when you calculate the square footage, if I've got it right, is this not right? We're adding 60-something.
Hang on.
Well,
Ben, I'll let you know if I need you.
63, is that right? Of the built environments that is there, we're adding how much new? We're a square foot, of the buildings, we're
Yes.
adding 32% of the
Yeah.
existing.
Come up and give her some clarity, or all of us
Yeah.
some clarity, because it's a lot of numbers and they're
Yeah, I
formatted
thought I
different
had
ways
it.
on purpose so that we can see it in
So-
different formats.
Correct. So, all right, they're essentially 3 blocks. So,
Right.
So the one on the left is gross square footage. So think of that as in the second floor, is it usable? The second is the footprint, which is pretty straightforward. The third is volume. Now, the third
volume, yeah.
the volume came up in DRC because that is kind of more
Right.
apt.
So
because we're
that
talking
63% volume we're adding on the
30%.
existing.
So out of the
You're adding 30.
volume, we would have, you've got the hotel would be 15% of the total. And
Okay.
the garage would be 14, so,
That, okay.
29%. And so, yeah. And that's
So-
the way you kind of experience the
Right.
buildings, because the Grand Hall has a lot of mass is only calculated at one level.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that help, Mary?
Yeah,
Little bit, okay.
we're adding, I just want to make sure I've got this. We're adding 32%,
29.
The 15 and the
29.
14.
29 is the new.
and that includes the parking. I think if I were working on this nomination, I would consider the parking garage an addition. And so the parking garage is how much square footage, volume?
Volume.
Yes.
So it's total volume with everything would be 7.2 million cubic feet. So the historic factory buildings are a little over 5 million cubic feet. The proposed parking garage is a little over 1 million cubic feet.
Okay.
And about the same for the hotel.
So that would not seem to me to be,
So the hotel, the parking garage, roughly adding, the addition is 20% of the original. It's 5 million to 1 million. It's 20%.
20% of the volume.
Yeah.
How we read it.
Yeah, and it's you can look at it a bunch of different ways, but
Yeah, well, you're talking about 20% of the gross square footage.
I'm not
You're
talking about square footage.
You're talking about cubic feet.
Yes,
That
sir.
would be 14%.
yeah,
So
Okay.
there,
yeah.
a couple different scenarios.
Yes. And then if we're considering it as a campus, then the hotel is adding what? Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sorry.
We're
you said
saying
1
the same
million out of
thing.
5. I've
Yeah,
got you.
yeah,
You're
we're
right.
saying
You're
the same
correct.
thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead, Mary.
It's how many then of cubic feet, the percentages?
Well, in comparison to just the factory building,
Yes.
okay, you'd be adding 20% to that by adding the
Okay.
parking garage.
And then we add what percentage with the hotel?
And the hotel
Of
is like a 20% addition too, but when it's all added up, the overall property, what's sitting there today is 71%, hotels 15, parking garage is 14. I know it's a little,
So
it's volume.
all of those together are,
Yeah, your So you're adding 2 million cubic feet to 5 million, right?
Cubic feet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that I think it can tolerate that if you look at it as a campus. I do believe that the two buildings that are going to be losing, they were considered contributing properties. I don't think these additions would remove it from the National Register. That might be something that staff would look at to find out, will this affect the National Register status, adding this much to the campus? But my feeling is that we're not getting over that 50%. That matters.
Okay.
We did, when we met with the State Historic Preservation Office, we did ask that question, and they said that you won't know if it does affect the determination on the property of the contributing status of the structures and everything until after it is built.
Yeah. Okay. Any other commissioners have some discussion? Mr.
I just have a
Laster?
discussion on the garage. So I'm going to vote yes for a favorable recommendation to the Planning Commission so it moves forward. But I do want to do that with it going into the record that on the garage, that I think we still have a lot of issues for height. And just to bring that up, Emily, can you bring up from the proposal, page number 17, and kind of zoom in on the top left corner, at least it's 17 in mine. It shows the garage with the automobiles on the very top.
No, that's the hotel proposal there,
That's
right?
the hotel.
Maybe it's in the supplemental, I don't
That's
know.
there's a lot of documents there.
Is it 24? Page
So-
24?
You may have passed it.
It's a side-by-side, that's it.
There it is.
Yes,
So
thank
zoom
you.
in on that top left corner. And this is from the Franklin Road side. So this is to me, which is the most historic view shed for all this district that we're talking about. And from that, can you zoom in even more on that? You can actually see the cars at the top of that building from Franklin Road. And I think that is going to be an issue, and I think it's not going to do any favors to the view shed of the historic district. So I just want to bring that up so the Planning Commission knows that at least this commissioner, can't support that height and seeing cars from Franklin Road on the top of a building, but that I do want it to move forward at least for a
Okay.
favorable recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
So it's kind of a yes under protest.
Sure. Anybody else?
I would add yes with reservations on seeing cars
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we'll get,
looming from the,
yeah, those are one of those things that I too have concerns about, but I think it could be something that's dealt with parapets
Right,
and what that
but-
rail looks like. But those are things we'll get to review again,
we'll
I
get to
think.
review those.
Yeah,
And so,
in more detail, certainly.
So
However, we're assuming height. We're assuming height. So whether you
Yeah.
add a parapet, you add height to the building. So I just want for the Planning
That's
Commission
right.
to know that
And I think they dropped it an additional 3 feet from where it was at DRC, which is close to the rail height. Is that true? Yeah. So 42 would be that rail height. So we're, again, we'll get to see all that.
Under the height.
Can I just make a comment about
Sure,
this?
Polly.
So I think part of the factory's appeal is the overall experience, not just like the view from Franklin Road. And I think that if it's lower and there's less parking, I think it'll be less of an enjoyable space because people will just be circling, trying to find parking forever. So I think that there's some pros and cons. Like if it's taller, then there's more parking. If it, and it's a better experience. If it's lower, then you don't see it from Franklin Road. So it's like a give and take thing, but I think they've done a really great job doing everything that has been asked of them. And I think it's a really good design plan for the whole site, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Question for the applicant.
Sure.
Is the parapet wall over like 42 inches, 5 feet tall to be able to block a view of the
Benton,
cars?
if you
from
want
the
to come
road?
up, or Gina.
Gina, you probably, I think that, well, this is the best example, or best image. So this shows there are two options that we wanted to show is guardrails and parapet. Parapet's going to conceal those cars, and this is still below the guideline height at 40 feet 10 inches.
But the parapet wall will
The
block
parapet wall
the
would
view
be
of
below
cars.
the guidelines for height. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And that's, I guess that's not to say that it blocks every car. I think my truck would stick up over that, but it probably helps, right? And then now you're kind of splitting hairs on
drive
things.
my truck in a garage, so it's,
Yeah, that's
it's all relative.
So they have lowered it 3 feet since the DRC meeting?
I think is that Miss Emanuel said? Yes. Yeah, an additional 3 feet. And then I think what I heard was everything came down relative. Towers, everything came down that, some measurement there.
That one image I showed you, the stair towers are really the item that was above on everything. And so when we did some redesign of the garage and relocating those stair towers, not the entire thing goes up all the way because some of it ramps up and you're parking on a ramp. So that stair tower could be shorter. So that stair tower is that's the one that's the 43 and only one of them is the 47. And so it was the whole thing lowered, and then the stair towers themselves were able to lower differently based on
Yeah,
where they were
differentially
located.
based on where they were on the ramp.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Does that help?
I'd
Okay.
like to say, I want
Yes.
to thank you for all your exhaustive work you've done to even get it to this point.
Yeah.
And as far as that parking garage, you're going to have similar materials. You're going to be brick facing it. So I think that's going to help mitigate a lot of our fears of how it would look.
Thank you. Anybody else before we vote? Right, so the motion on the floor is to provide a favorable recommendation to Planning Commission in BOMA. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Okay, Lisa, thank you. So I think that's 7. I keep counting us. You'd think I'd know by the end of the meeting that there's 8. 7-1 there. And the motion passes, so we will provide that favorable recommendation to Planning Commission in BOMA. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Other business. This says staff. That means you want to read it.
Yes.
Thank you. I want you to read it.
Okay. As if y'all couldn't be tired of hearing me read things tonight. But anyway, so we passed out cards for everyone to look at. We're trying to poll you all for new dates for the annual training that we're going to hold. If y'all can give us, mark yes if you're available on those dates. We just need these back by next Monday. So if you need to go home, check it with your calendar, whoever else you need to run it by, just bring it to us next Monday so we can, see who's available and kind of go from there. That's it.
Is the 21st a Thursday? I'm seeing a Friday on some calendar that might
Is
be
it-
wrong.
February
Yes.
21st, it's a Friday.
Okay, it says Thursday, February 21st on this
Okay.
little thing here. Just, you want us to use the dates, the numbers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that means Wednesday the 20th is Thursday the 20th.
Yes.
You think so? Okay.
Yes.
I want to just make sure we're using the right thing.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other announcements?
Yeah,
Ray?
I have something. So this appeared in the Calgary Herald. And this just says, stepping onto Main Street in downtown Franklin, Tennessee, I half expect a camera crew to pop out and announce we're disrupting the filming of a holiday Hallmark movie. The meticulously preserved historic buildings with their enchanting boutique storefronts seem almost too curated to be real. And the reason they've been curated is because Franklin has a historic zoning overlay.
That's right.
Oh, nice.
So,
Thank
and
you, Brian.
people apparently all over the world are noticing.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
It's true.
And thank you all for that. Many of you have been on here a lot longer than I and other commissioners, so we are standing on your shoulders. And those new folks, you can continue to stand. We'll keep climbing there.
Right. I would say the other thing, I know Bob and I went, I don't know if anybody else was there today, to see the carousel that we approved the building for, is coming forward and getting funded, and the carving is just extraordinary.
Exciting.
And we got to see the artist today talk about what a dream this has been for him. So
Awesome.
that's
It's gonna
going to be an exciting thing for Franklin. It'll add to our Hallmarkness.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. At this time, let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you so much.